Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Wednesday, May 5th, 2021, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the 21st century presidential elections and applying them to our brand new electoral map released by the United States Census Bureau. Now, the United States Census Bureau released this electoral map following the 2020 census, exhibiting a number of changes in the electoral map in certain states: Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, the Rust Belt region decreasing in electoral votes to compensate for the Sun Belt region, Texas, North Carolina, Florida, Colorado, gaining electoral votes, and we have a new electoral map. But that only saw a narrow change from the 2016 election and the 2020 election and the 2012 election. But let's compare it let's go ahead and apply all of the elections in the 21st century to our brand new map. There should be in total, I think, we should be seeing 6 elections. We're going to go through them pretty quickly, and many of the states have voted the exact same way since the year 2000. So we're going to start off with the 2000 map and just pretty much compare it to what the actual results were. Keep in mind, this is one of the closest elections in United States history. On our brand new map, it is the closest, with 538 electoral votes in total. 271 to 266, keep that in mind. 271 for the Republicans, 266 for the Democrats. So I'm going to go ahead and characterize all of those states right now. The Democrats, of course, did well on the West Coast, and that's something that hasn't changed since the beginning of the century. In addition, they were able to win the Rust Belt, something that was largely unexpected for the Democrats in 2020, or by some people, not by everyone, but Iowa was the main thing that I meant to say, largely unexpected, is that I was looking at Iowa when I made that statement. But, some people did expect the Rust Belt to go to the Republican Party. And also, some of these states have taken a very significant change in terms of electoral history. Virginia was a solid red state at that point. It's very interesting now that it's pretty solid for the Democratic Party. I don't think it's actually it was a safe margin. I think it was an 8-point margin, if I was not mistaken, an 8-point margin in the state. That should be the margin. Hopefully I'm right about that. But as you can see so far, the electoral map looks even worse for the Democrats than it did before. And that was largely due to the concentration of electoral votes in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Iowa, Ohio. If you're looking at the electoral map back then, what do you notice? Well, I'm going to show it to you so you can see the change in real time. But you'll notice that Wisconsin had 11 electoral votes. Today they have 10. Iowa has 7. Today they have 6. Illinois has 22. Today they have 19. Indiana has 12. Today they have 11. Ohio has 21. Today they have 17. Michigan had 18. Today they have 15. Pennsylvania had 23. And today they have 19. So if you're looking at the electoral map here, pretty much all of these states that were competitive for Al Gore that he won have lost electoral votes. Minnesota has stayed the same, but Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, even Ohio has seen a reduction in the amount of electoral votes. Indiana, Illinois, the main thing is that region has decreased. And also California, was actually not at 55. It was at 55 following the census after this one, but it was at 54. So it's reverted back to those numbers, but this map is not nearly as competitive as it was back in the year 2000. Different population shifts have made certain states weigh a lot more than they did previously. And now our electoral map is 285 for George W. Bush to 253 for Al Gore. So it wouldn't have even have been one of the most competitive elections. Yes, it would have been still determined based off Florida, but besides that, it was not necessarily as close as you might think. New Hampshire would not have made all the difference like it would have back in the year 2000. Let's fast forward to our 2004 electoral map, and this actually isn't dramatically different. Not many states actually change in terms of overall electoral votes. And actually, I made a mistake. Sorry about this. The state of New Hampshire actually went to George W. Bush. So this is actually the 2000 map. It's 289, not 285 to 249. I know someone's already commented it because I did make the mistake a little bit ago, but New Hampshire went red. Now we can move on because I made a mistake. Sorry about that. I knew that I would catch it. But let's go ahead and take a look at the 2004 map because it actually isn't very different. And the reason why I remember it actually is because New Hampshire went to the Democrats in 2004 despite going for George W. Bush in the year 2000. So New Hampshire might go blue in the 2004 electoral map, but the Democrats lost New Mexico and Iowa. Now, the 2004 election was not one of the closest in United States history. It was one with 286 electoral votes to 251. Well, on our new electoral map, the Democratic Party is at 242 electoral votes, down 9 votes, and the Republicans are up at 296 electoral votes. So it was a pretty significant reduction for the Democrats. a significant increase for the Republicans. Altogether, and the reason actually why it was 251 for John Kerry is because of the fact that there was a faithless elector. So really he earned 252 electoral votes. If you're wondering why the math isn't mathing, that's the reason. But just looking at our electoral map, increase for George W. Bush, but again, for the same exact reasons, certain areas are decreasing in population while others were increasing. Main thing that Texas at the time of this election had 34 electoral votes. Today they have 40. Florida had 27. Today they have 30. Looking at the states, they've gained electoral votes, and the ones won by John Kerry have just decreased. There are a few exceptions. Oregon has gained electoral votes. California had 55 electoral votes, but again, different types of things, different type of electoral map changes in areas in terms of population. So let's move on to the 2008 election. This was a very good election for the Democratic Party. Barack Obama won 365 electoral votes to John McCain's 173. Now, normally I would have the map right next to me, but I'm going to do this strictly by memory because I know exactly which states went to Obama, but I hope I'm not incorrect about this one. So let's go ahead and see if I made any major mistakes. I don't think I did. Indiana did go blue. You are seeing that correctly. If you're from the state, I know you're just as shocked as I would have been had I time traveled back then. But 357 to 181 sort of makes sense. If you're looking at the states that Obama really ran up the numbers, and if you take a look at the margins in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, you will be astonished because they are double-digit margins. But pretty much, Obama was able to run up the numbers in these states in particular. This entire region that has seen a reduction in electoral votes. And I will zoom in on the same exact region so you can see the exact amount of electoral votes in these states that have actually decreased in terms of electoral presence. So let's compare. Michigan has reduced by 2, Pennsylvania by 2 as well, Ohio by 3, Indiana has not, Illinois has reduced by 2, and Iowa has reduced by 1. New York, which I wouldn't necessarily include as part of the Rust Belt, but there's a very tiny area that has been included in the Rust Belt. New York goes from 31 all the way down to 28. So a reduction of 3. So the main thing is that, Obama won't get as many electoral votes because this region of the country has seen a reduction. While Obama was able to do well in the states, it doesn't, take away the fact that these states have lost electoral votes. The regions in which he lost, Texas again had 34 electoral votes. Arizona at the time had 10. Utah had 5. Main thing, Georgia had 15. The states that were lost by Obama had less electoral votes than they do now. Montana had 3. Today they have 4. It really just depends on who was winning what, but pretty much Obama didn't win the states that gained in electoral votes. So let's move on to the 2012 election. Things were a little bit different. North Carolina went red, and so did Indiana. And the 2012 election was 332 to 206. And now it's 330 to 208. So 2012 versus the 2012 numbers versus the 2024 numbers. We actually aren't seeing a dramatically different change here. Main thing is that Obama would receive 330 electoral votes and Romney would have received 208. Not much changing at all. 2 electoral votes. Actually, it should be 3 because of Nebraska's 2nd district going back to the GOP. But, main thing is that there weren't significant changes. Nothing that was out of the ordinary. This is just a regular type of census shift, even though there are very different coalitions around the country. So if you're looking at some of the other changes, in the year 2000, we saw a change of 10 electoral votes. If you're looking at the, 2004 election was a change of 10 electoral votes. The 2000 election, what did we see? A change of a lot more than that, a change of 18 electoral votes in total, I think. So yeah, 2000 was a change in 18 electoral votes, 2004, 10 electoral votes. 2008, we saw a change of 8 electoral votes, but in 2012, what do we see? Only a change in 3 electoral votes. So obviously that makes sense. We're getting closer and closer to the electoral map that we're using today. And this is the first time we're looking at a map of 2010 census, which will be the one that was used for 2012, 2016, and 2020. So this is the same exact map that we would be working with, expect the same type of reductions, if that makes sense. So 2012 map, the Democratic Party saw a narrow decrease in support, but nothing super significant. I'm not looking at this and saying, it's significant at all. Then you roll around to 2016. What happens with President Obama? He's a popular president. Don't you expect Hillary Clinton to win? Well, almost all of us did, but Hillary Clinton lost. So the margin doesn't actually get better for Democrats. If you're looking at the amount they lost in 306 to 232, but they lost in Florida, Ohio, Iowa, 3 states that they had won in 2012. They also lost in North Carolina and Indiana, 2 states that were won in 2008. And then they also lost in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. And then Maine's 2nd congressional district. But that's it. The Democrats didn't lose any more than that, but it doesn't actually make it, better for them. They still lost, and it was 307 to 231 versus 306 to 232. So we actually saw a change of just 1 electoral vote from the 2016 election. Isn't that interesting? Obviously, it makes sense. The closer and closer you get to the actual populations and the new map, it makes sense for there to be a reduction in terms of overall change. But I was expecting maybe 5 to 10, not 1 or 3. So 2016 map, there's a change of 1 electoral votes, an increase for the Republicans. Main thing that we've seen throughout all of these changes that the Republican Party has seen an increase. That's due to Texas, that's due to Arizona, that's due to Georgia, North Carolina, Florida. States that had, smaller electoral presences before, and states that are now won by Democrats, the Rust Belt region in specific, has seen a reduction. The only reason why President Trump was able to counteract some of the losses in the Rust Belt, for example, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, he was able to make up for that in Texas, Florida, North Carolina. So pretty much, counteract it and do better because there were 2 electoral votes gained in both Texas and Florida. Texas, 1 in Florida, 1 in North Carolina, versus, 1 being lost in Michigan, 1 being lost in Pennsylvania, 1 being lost in Ohio. A couple of other changes that balanced out overall with a net positive 1 for the GOP. And then the 2020 election, this one actually shows, again, similar result. The GOP does a little bit better than they actually did. The numbers, instead of 306 to 232, are instead 302 to 236. So this is a change of 4 electoral votes. It was going well. It was coming down to a point where we probably weren't going to see too many changes, and we aren't. 4 isn't a lot, but it's more than 2016 and 2012. So a change of 4 electoral votes in favor of the GOP. Main thing that we are noticing is that the GOP is seeing an increase in electoral votes, again, because the states that they are winning are increasing in population. What it also tells you, that's why Texas is getting bluer. That's why North Carolina is getting to a point where it could go to the Democrats again. Georgia's getting bluer. Arizona's getting bluer. Florida's probably not. But, main thing is that a lot of these states that the GOP is seeing an increase, the Democratic Party is getting closer and closer to winning. And they actually did win them in the 2020 election. Georgia and Arizona are perfect examples for that one. And let me correct myself, it was not 302, but rather 303 to 235, but it isn't that much of a change. I mean, we're talking about a change of 3 electoral votes. So again, in favor of the GOP, on par with 2012, worse than 2016 in terms of change. But honestly, I'm not mad at it. I don't think that this is showing a super dramatic decrease or increase of support, or not of support, of population in certain areas, just that it really does favor the GOP with this new map. But then again, the Democratic Party has new opportunities in some of these states that they previously did not. Texas being the best and perfect example for this situation. A state with 40 electoral votes that would likely break any Republican electorate if it goes to the Democratic Party. When the Republicans look at the map, they always assume Texas is in their column. They can no longer do so, at least in 2024 or beyond. Texas is absolutely a swing state, and because of its newfound electoral presence, it's nearing up to where California is. What was a difference of, let me think, the difference of over 10 at the time of 2004, the 2004 election, there was 34 in Texas and 55 in California, meaning there was a difference of 21. Now there's a difference of 14. And as the years progress, Texas is expected to gain more electoral votes following the next census, and California will likely stay put or potentially decrease, the same way they did after the 2020 census. So California goes from 55 down to 54, and it's going to be a little bit till we get someone, a state with a 53rd district, but it could be Texas, it could be Florida. We don't know who's up next, but Texas is certainly gaining, and this is now a priority target number 1 or number 2 for the Democratic Party because it is now within reach. So while the GOP may see momentary gains or initial gains just on the surface level, with Montana gaining a vote, Texas gaining 2, Florida, North Carolina gaining 1, overall, the reason why they're gaining is because we are seeing increased populations from mainly minority citizens, which almost always skew towards the left. So the Democrats are recognizing this, that while Texas may gain electoral prominence, and it'll make it more difficult for Democrats to win as long as it votes for the GOP, once it does go to the Democratic Party, it will be a very solid and large victory, one worth celebrating. If Texas was only worth 3 electoral votes, there would not be $100 million funneled into it, nor would it be viewed as a priority state in the future. But given that Texas has a long Republican history but is getting more and more left-wing, The Republicans are probably applauding the gains in Texas and North Carolina and Florida, but in the future, once the Democrats actually do end up winning there, because it is inevitable, there's states are not going to be Republican for the rest of their existence, right? The Democratic Party will likely be very happy with that result, knowing that they did gain votes, versus the Rust Belt region, which seems to be actually getting more and more out of touch with the Democrats, with very few Democrats actually being able to perform well there. With its decreasing electoral vote means it no longer has the prominence that it once did, and a lot of the focus can shift into the South, which already started with Arizona, Texas, and Georgia. So I just wanted to show you all of the elections in the 21st century on our brand new electoral map. I think this is very interesting. I'm probably going to end up applying older elections to this one, just even though the bases aren't exactly the same, and many states haven't stayed the same. For example, back then, West Virginia in 1996, West Virginia was a solid blue state. Arkansas was a solid blue state. Roll around 2000, super significant shifts, but something that closely mimics what we're used to today. But I might actually explore older maps on the 2024 map just for fun, because it is interesting to see how much our electorate and our population center states have changed over time. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my post-2020 election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.